Hey. That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
He did what?
Jackpot, baby!
Ice up, son. Ice up.
That is blasphemous.
You can put it on the board. Yes.
Down to the Midwest, Kansas got a pretty big scare from Creighton in round 2, but they narrowly escaped that one, and they make it to the Sweet 16 to take on Providence. Kansas wins 79-72 against Creighton, and now they'll be taking on a Providence team that, very similar to Arkansas, this will be their first big test. Providence, they do what they have to do late in the game against South Dakota State to come out on top in that one, and then they play Richmond. Richmond didn't really, do anything in that game. Richmond kind of was a one and done kind of team. They pull off the upset against Iowa, and then just couldn't do it again. Providence took care of business there, and going into this game between Kansas and Providence. I would love to say that Kansas, I would love to say that Providence rather has a real good chance at beating Kansas, and Providence is going to give Kansas a run for their money. But the truth is, I can't tell, because Providence in the Big East tournament, going into the Big East tournament, I should say, they were top 10 team in the country. A lot of hype was going around Providence saying this is the year that they can really put it together and make a deep run in the tournament. They get to the Big East tournament. They lose in the semifinal to Creighton, and it wasn't pretty either. It was not a close loss. It wasn't, it was pretty bad. And so they didn't even make it to the Big East championship game. Somehow, they get in as a 4 seed in the tournament. They, again, needed a late, a super late, I don't want to say comeback, but they needed some late heroics to beat South Dakota State. The refs helped a little bit as well, but they get the job done there. And then, as I mentioned, Richmond, they pretty much blew Richmond right out of the water. And I don't know what you gained from that. I feel like you could say, sure, Providence played well, but you could also point to Richmond and say, well, Richmond didn't exactly hold up their end of the bargain either. And Kansas, again, Kansas number 1 seed, sure, they win 2 games, but it was a 16 seed and a 9 seed, and they barely scraped by Creighton. So I don't know. This is a very similar matchup to Gonzaga and Arkansas, where both teams, sure, they won 2 games, but not exactly confident as to what they're capable of right now in the tournament. Can they go far, or are they? I don't want to say frauds, but do they just get a lucky draw on the teams they play? I think, Providence seems beatable. It seems doable for Kansas, and I just think that. I don't know. I just have the feeling that Kansas is just too much to handle for Providence. So I got to have Kansas winning that one, making it to the Elite 8. And then looking a step further, and this is the thing, just reminded me looking at this bracket, is that Kansas has to be very careful of what we talked about with Purdue and UCLA, where they cannot overlook their opponent. Because if I'm Kansas, I'm looking at this bracket and I'm licking my chops. Because you say, hey, if we beat Providence, we'll be playing a double-digit seed guaranteed. We'll be playing Miami or Ohio State. Now, again, you can't say, oh, that's easy, right? You can't say we've got the Final Four right here, right for the picking, because Auburn probably thought that, and then Miami came and showed them up. And I guess Iowa State learned how to play defense in the past weekend. So I think for Kansas, the key is take care of business against Providence, and whoever you play after that is whoever you play. You got to take care of business here first. If you beat Providence, though, I think Kansas has a great shot at making the Final Four. Great shot. Iowa State, as I mentioned, I guess Iowa State figured out how to play defense here in the past weekend. They are definitely leaving me scratching my head. Not a little bit, but a lot. Like, I'm scratching my head to the point where I'm almost developing a bald spot because of how just confused I am about them. Because if you didn't watch Iowa State, if you didn't watch the Cyclones end of their season, let me run this back for you a little bit. Last three games of their season, of the regular season including the Big 12 tournament, not exactly the best. They lose 53-36 to Oklahoma State. Yeah, you heard me right. 53-36 to Oklahoma State. And then they lost to Baylor. Sure, Baylor was a good team. They ended up being a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. The talent's there, right? Baylor, not exactly a team to sneeze at. They lost 75-68. And then Texas Tech. This is the one that, this is another bad loss in the aspect of how they played, not who they lost to. Because, yeah, Texas Tech's a great team, right? Number 3 seed. They make it to the Sweet 16. They, have been playing really good basketball as of late. They got to the Big 12 championship game. All that great stuff. But it's not that they lost to Texas Tech that's saying, oh my goodness, what a bad loss. But it was how they played in that game that you watch that game, you're saying, oh, that's not good. And this was in the Big 12 tournament, mind you. I believe, yeah, it was Big 12 tournament. They lost 72-41 to Texas Tech. And so that's how they end their season going into Selection Sunday. And as I mentioned last week, I was looking at Michigan and Iowa State, and I was thinking, how did those teams not have to play a play-in game? Because their end of the season was pretty dreadful. And I don't know. I guess Iowa State figured out how to play basketball, how to play good basketball in the past week. And I think they did get a little bit of, I don't want to say a gimme, but I do want to say that they got a pretty, they got an easier draw than normal in LSU, right? LSU has all the FBI allegations with cheating and all that stuff going on. They fired Will Wade. LSU was a dumpster fire going to the tournament. Nobody was really expecting them to do too much. But Iowa State wins 59-54, which again, I understand beating LSU. Iowa State didn't score a whole lot. Their defense was all right. They're good enough to win. And so I thought, okay, they're going into this next round. They're going to play Wisconsin. No way, right? No way this happens. And what do you know? They play arguably their best game of the year. And no, they didn't score a lot of points. No, they didn't score more than 60. They didn't score more than 55. They scored 54. But Wisconsin, again, they have a few guys on their team that you might have heard of. They're pretty good at scoring the basketball. Johnny Davis, Brad Davison, Nate Reavers, and a few more. Pretty good scorers. And Iowa State held that Wisconsin team to 49 points. Yes, in an entire game. Not one half. 2 halves. An entire game. And I was astonished that Iowa State beat Wisconsin 54-49. That was pretty shocking. Not going to lie on that one. So, they're going into this game against Miami, and, I'm looking at Miami as a team that they got to be feeling like Rodney Dangerfield right now, like they don't get any respect, because they had a pretty decent record in ACC play, and overall, right, they were the 5th best team in the ACC. They took Duke right down to the wire in the ACC quarters. They played great, and they get in as a 10 seed. They go in, they take care of USC, they win by 2 points. USC almost had a mid-court shot, a half-court heave to win that game, but it didn't fall. So Miami gets by. And then they play Auburn, which everybody thought, okay, Auburn's going to win this game. Auburn's going to maybe make it to the Final Four. And Miami, which wasn't having it. They win by 18 points against Auburn. That was pretty incredible. So, I don't know. I would love to say right now, what my heart and my gut is telling me is that Miami is going to beat Iowa State. But with how Iowa State has just been, for me, Iowa State has been a completely different basketball team these past, 2 games, past weekend. So that game is a true toss-up for me. I have no clue what to expect there. Yeah, I don't know. That Iowa State and Miami really leaving me speechless there. I'm not really sure what to say about them, truly. So